Hi friends, Renee Keys here with Carolina Creative. I'm a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator here with card making ideas for you. Today I'm back to playing again with the Friends for Life stamp bundle. So there's stamps and dies, and then it's really part of the Full of Life suite, which includes all these really pretty bold papers. So again, I'm going to show another way to use some of these papers. I find they can be a little bit intimidating. So the first thing I want to do is stamp the leaf stamp out of this set so that I can then do some die cutting all at one time. So I'm going to go ahead and flip the camera down. This is my work area. I've got two colors I'm working with because I'm using this paper in shades of green. So I've got Shaded Spruce and Granny Apple. And for this first die cut, I'm going to stamp this smaller leaf. You can see where I'm wanting to die cut it down here. Yep, I got enough ink there. Die cut that. And then I've got a die out because I'm going to use the sentiment. I'm having to use a lot, and friends are also needing a lot of sympathy cards. So I really like this sentiment with deepest sympathy out of something fancy. So I'm using sentiments from this as well as the dies, and that's where this came from. So I want to do that as a die cut for my sentiment. So let me start by grabbing my my cutting and embossing machine. I'm going to bring it up here and make two passes because there's two different things I want to do. So the first thing is to line this up and be able to run it through at the same time that I'm going to do what the sentiment will get stamped on. So this is a twofer being run through at the same time. And then I'm also going to die cut the big die cut leaflet. It's really pretty. I like it a lot. It's kind of generic. It's not real overly floral. And so I do tend to use that. All right, so that was the first pass. So I have a leaf and I have something for my sentiment to go on. Next thing, I've got a piece of Shaded Spruce, and I'm going to put this big die on here, and I'm just going to run this back through in the other direction, making just a standard sandwich, nothing special here. I've got my plate number 2, and then my 2 clear plates, which are number 3s. Oh, I didn't even see. I had picked up, wow, I didn't know it would do that. I had picked up the other die and it was on top. Isn't that interesting? It didn't cut all the way, so I think my die cut's fine. I hope. We're about to find out. Yeah, it is. Wow, it was stuck and I didn't even notice it. Need to slow down and pay more attention. Okay, I will pop all that out, but let me just move this out of my way. Okay, so don't run dies through on top of each other because it will impact the die. Now I'm going to punch out the pieces here. Where's my take your pick tool? Because I had that extra piece there, that extra die, I think it did impact the way this one section cut. It didn't go all the way through, so this is going to take, and I could just leave it in there, and that's fine too. Sometimes you see people do that. They leave them in, just, it's interesting. So if I want to add a little bit more, I'll save that too. So let me show you what I'm working with. I already told you I had 2 ink colors. So I've got Shaded Spruce and Granny Apple Green. And here they are again. My card base is spruce. I was going to layer, this is like a 2.5 inch strip of Designer Series paper onto the Granny Apple just to give it a little bit of contrast. And now I've got my little leaflet, and I'm going to do a little bit of watercoloring with my Wink of Stella on that one. You can already see I've got some ink here, so I'm just going to add my Wink of Stella to that and just shade this in a little bit. I might only do one side of the leaf. I picked the bigger side. A lot of times I pick the smaller side as if it's the underside, but you know, just play with it. So I've added a little bit of shimmer and a little bit of color here. Yep, that was what I had in mind. And so now the other 2 things I'm going to stamp before I assemble. And I think I'm just going to use the shaded spruce for that. Inside the card, I'm going to put, and I went searching for another sentiment, and this came out of an old retired, it's a pretty peony, something peony. But it's a wonderful sentiment. It just says, so sorry for your loss. Because I said I was needing sympathy cards, I thought that was appropriate. And that's going to go with my deepest sympathy. So I'm pairing kind of a modern vibe, and then I've got this pretty cursive, swooshy writing. So it's kind of a contrast, but I really like that. And so now what I want to do is also in spruce, I'm going to stamp the same leaf but in a different color and just put it down here in the corner. Yeah, it didn't end up fully on. I'm okay, but a lot of times I like it to go off the paper, but I think that's just enough like it is. Just a little something inside. So now I am ready to assemble. This is the inside. So I will go ahead and just adhere that with my little dots of, oh, there's a big one. I'll spread that around. My little dots of glue. Let's spread that so it can't go oozing out. That's the biggest problem. If you put too much glue, when you press it down, it runs out. And I don't like that. It gets on your fingers and it just, to me, it looks messy. Okay, so now I'm going to glue paper onto the cardstock and, and mat it. Kind of make a frame and a contrasting color is what I'm doing. And I did go edge to edge with this. Sometimes I will reveal all 4 sides, but in this case, I was wanting to slide. I did go, let's try this again, top to bottom, so it's a complete 5.5 inch. Wow, I'm really struggling with this today. Get it straight. There we go. Yep, straight. Okay. And then it's now a little bit heavier with all those, with the 2 layers. So I'm just going to use my stamp and seal and put that on. And I am going to try to center this. I'm going to eyeball it. I mean, I know I could measure it and make it very exact, but so a lot of times I like to put it off to one side. This I felt like I wanted to center because I'm going to have a leaf going that way and the smaller leaf going this way, and I wanted to have space for that to overlap. And then I'm just going to put my sentiment on there, like that. So I will need my dimensionals, which I did not get out. The other thing I'm going to do before I start to adhere this, I want to put some Wink of Stella on this as well. So I'm going to do it along the main stem. Sometimes I do this after I glue it down, and then it can be a little messy. Trying to not get it on the background paper. I mean, it's okay if you do, but I'm just going to put some shimmer on the outline of these leaves. It'll just, it adds a little bit of interest. And it doesn't have to be exact. It's just enough to give it that shimmer. And then I may be, like I said, I've got these other pieces. I may decide to add that. So for right now, I'm going to kind of figure out where I want to position this. So right now I'm thinking like that. And this is where it gets very delicate. So I'm going to try to just dot glue. The fine tip glue pen can also work well for these types of dies because you can dot that on there. And so in the meantime, I'm just going to dot this on, make sure I got the tips so that the tips will stay flat. And then, because I know that's where I want this to go, I'm going to have that coming right out of there. Over on an angle. Yeah, I did get a little bit of glue there. It'll be okay. That goes that way. This is going to go the other direction. Now this would look cute with dimensionals too if you wanted to pop that off, but I'm just kind of staying. I must not have gotten glue behind that upper tip. So let's put a dot right there and hold that down. It's, there's 2 layers. I'm trying to flatten it onto the base layer, so that made it a little uneven. Now, I do want the dimensionals. So let's, you know what else I could do? Again, just for a little interest, before I put those dimensionals on. Of course, I have 2 on my fingers. I'm going to take the contrasting color and just put a hint of leaf. Ah, yes. And sometimes you see me, I'll run ink around the edges, and I'm trying to keep this kind of clean. So I'm not going to do that on this. It would look good, you know, to run the ink around the edges. And I'm almost out of, that'll work. I use every bit of my dimensionals. I use the random pieces. It's just helpful. I knew the Take Your Pick tool was right here. You know, why not use it? It's an odd shape. It doesn't matter. It's on the back side. So I use every bit of it. Okay. I put these in the trash so they don't get tracked all over the house. I know we all have that problem. And then line this up. Yep, like that. Okay. So what I will do now, I wanted that bigger piece, if I can figure out where this came from. Oh, maybe that came right out of there. I kind of like that. So I'm going to glue that in there, but I'm going to put a little sparkle on there. I'm going to put a drop of glue behind it, and that way it doesn't look like I just had one that was stuck there. I've got a little bit more. So put that in, and then, is this the same piece? I'm playing here. It is. I'm going to do the same thing. Add one more. Drop of glue here. Of course, it didn't want to go right where I wanted it. So let's do it this way. More than one way to do. There's no one way. There's always multiple ways to do this. Okay. So again, I'm going to put a little shimmer on there. Okay. And so the last thing I did have was a bow. And I think I'm just going to stick that in the bottom corner since or I could put it up there too. I think I'm going to put it right there. I didn't want to put bling on here. The little bit of shimmer I think is just enough. And so I was thinking a bow might be just a nice little touch. And if I decide that's a little bit big, I'm going to give it a trim just to keep it kind of, like I said, neat and clean. I don't want this to be too big. I'll give it a little bit of an angle here. There we go. Okay, so that is my sympathy card for today. Kind of clean lines, kind of, I don't want to say simple, but it's not complicated. I had, you know, 2 different types of die cuts, did just a little bit of stamping, and then put a message on the inside. So another way to use this paper, I could have filled the entire card front with it, but I kind of like the idea of having, you know, there's a bunch of different shades of green, and so I pulled 2 out just to give it a little bit of variation. So thanks for joining me today. If you like the projects and the products you're seeing here, you can find me at Carolina Creative or hashtag Carolina Creative. I am on the Stampin' Up! Network. And just a note that this Full of Life suite, the Stamps and Dies, will be retiring at the end of April. So when the new catalog launches in May, this will no longer be available. So if you're finding this is something that you like, you got 4 or 5 weeks to snatch it before it disappears. So thanks for joining today. Stay tuned for the next video. Appreciate you.